Welcome to our channel. Today, we discuss something both fascinating and alarming: the social media app that rewires your brain to hate. It's a bold claim, but recent research and investigative reporting suggest that certain platforms are engineered in ways that don't just grab your attention, they actively shape your thoughts, emotions, and even your moral instincts. And it's not just about scrolling for hours or mindlessly liking posts. We're talking about technology designed to exploit the way your brain works, nudging you toward anger, polarization, and even hostility toward others. To understand this, let's start with the basics of human psychology. Our brains are wired to seek reward. Every time we see something exciting, shocking, or validating, our brain releases dopamine, the chemical of pleasure. Social media platforms take advantage of this. Likes, comments, shares, and notifications are all small dopamine hits, creating a feedback loop that keeps you engaged. But here's the twist: research shows that content that provokes strong emotional reactions, especially anger or outrage, triggers even more engagement than neutral or positive content. In other words, our brains are biologically primed to react to things that make us feel negative emotions, and social media algorithms exploit this. So how does this lead to hate? Algorithms are designed to maximize your time on the app, showing you content that keeps you scrolling. The more outrage, fear, or disgust a post generates, the more the platform amplifies it. Over time, repeated exposure to highly charged content can rewire your neural pathways. This isn't metaphorical; the brain is literally shaped by what it experiences. Neural networks strengthen with repeated activation, meaning the more you consume anger-inducing content, the easier it becomes for your brain to react with hostility. Essentially, these platforms train your brain to respond in ways that serve their engagement goals, not your well-being. Consider the concept of echo chambers. Social media apps often use personalized feeds, showing you content that aligns with your previous beliefs and reactions. This creates a feedback loop where your opinions are constantly reinforced, your biases confirmed, and opposing viewpoints filtered out. When combined with content engineered to provoke negative emotions, it becomes incredibly easy to develop resentment, suspicion, or even hatred toward certain groups or ideas. Over time, this can shift social norms, making extreme views seem normal and moderating influences invisible. Neuroscience also shows that repeated exposure to conflict and outrage can trigger stress responses in the brain. The amygdala, the part of the brain that processes fear and threat, becomes more active, while the prefrontal cortex, which regulates rational thinking and empathy, may become less engaged. In practical terms, this makes it harder to empathize, reason calmly, or consider other perspectives. The app doesn't just make you scroll longer, it literally changes the way your brain processes social information. One chilling example comes from studies on how polarized content spreads online. Research indicates that emotionally charged posts, especially those that invoke anger or disgust, are more likely to be shared and amplified than neutral or positive content. This means the app rewards content that divides communities, demonizes groups, and stokes outrage. And because the platform is automated, these patterns are amplified exponentially, creating a social environment where hostility thrives. Over time, users aren't just consuming hate, they are being conditioned to produce it themselves. It's also important to consider the psychological phenomenon of social proof. When we see other people reacting angrily, we're more likely to respond similarly. Social media makes it easy to see thousands, even millions, of people expressing outrage. This creates a false sense of consensus. If everyone else is angry or hateful, our brain interprets that behavior as normal or justified. Algorithms amplify this effect, showing us the posts most likely to elicit strong reactions, and in doing so, they reinforce patterns of aggression and hostility in the network as a whole. The implications go beyond individual behavior. When large numbers of people are exposed to this kind of content, entire communities and even political systems can be affected. Research has shown that algorithm-driven feeds can influence voting behavior, public opinion, and social cohesion. The app becomes not just a tool for personal engagement, but a powerful mechanism for shaping societal attitudes. In some cases, this amplification of negativity has been linked to real-world consequences like harassment, mob behavior, or intergroup conflict. What's particularly concerning is that many users aren't aware this is happening. Unlike traditional media, which is consumed passively, social media is interactive and personalized. Your feed is curated by algorithms that respond to your engagement patterns. You might think you're simply following your interests, but in reality, the app is constantly learning which emotional triggers keep you hooked. It's a subtle, insidious form of behavioral conditioning. Over time, the brain adapts to these patterns, prioritizing outrage and fear over calm, rational thought or curiosity. There are ways to mitigate these effects, though it requires awareness and intentional action. One approach is digital hygiene, limiting time on apps, turning off notifications, and actively diversifying your feed. Following accounts with differing perspectives, seeking out positive or neutral content, and being mindful of emotional reactions can counteract the app's conditioning. Essentially, you're retraining your brain, strengthening neural pathways associated with empathy, reasoning, and emotional regulation, while weakening the circuits that respond automatically to outrage. Another powerful tool is conscious reflection. Before reacting, liking, or sharing content, pause and ask yourself, why am I reacting this way? What evidence supports this view? Am I responding to facts or to emotional manipulation? Over time, these reflective practices can counterbalance algorithmic influence, making you less susceptible to the cognitive rewiring these apps are designed to produce. Some experts even suggest more structured digital detoxes or periods of complete disengagement from social media. This gives the brain a chance to reset, reduce stress responses, and recover from constant emotional stimulation. During these breaks, engaging in real-world social interactions, physical activity, and mindfulness practices can reinforce healthy neural patterns that social media might have suppressed. Of course, it's also important to recognize that social media isn't inherently evil. These platforms can connect people, provide education, and foster creativity. The problem isn't the technology itself, it's how it's engineered for engagement, often at the expense of mental well-being. By understanding the mechanisms at play, users can make conscious choices to protect their brains and maintain emotional health. In conclusion, the social media app that rewires your brain to hate isn't a conspiracy theory, it's a reality rooted in neuroscience, psychology, and technology design. Algorithms amplify content that triggers anger, fear, and disgust, reshaping neural circuits over time. But the good news is that with awareness, intentional use, and mindful practices, you can reclaim control over your brain's responses and reduce the impact of these manipulative mechanisms. Your attention is valuable, and protecting it is essential not just for your mental health, but for the well-being of society as a whole. If this video gave you insight into the hidden power of social media, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into technology and psychology, and comment below with your thoughts. Have you ever noticed yourself becoming angrier online than in real life? How do you manage your social media exposure to protect your mind? Let's get the conversation started.